In asking the question, why am I here, we should most certainly read the excellent book On Becoming a Person by the distinguished psychotherapist and psychologist Carl R. Rogers. In Chapter 8, To Be That Self Which One Truly Is, a Therapist's View of Personal Goals, Dr. Rogers tells of an important study in which Charles Morris investigated objectively the pathways of life which were preferred by students in 6 different countries: India, China, Japan, the United States, Canada, and Norway. As one might expect, he found decided differences in goals between these national groups. He also endeavored, through a factor analysis of his data, to determine the underlying dimensions of value which seemed to operate in the thousands of specific individual preferences. Without going into the details of his analysis, we might look at the 5 dimensions which emerged, and which, combined in various positive and negative ways, appeared to be responsible for the individual choices. The first such value dimension involves a preference for a responsible, moral, self-restrained participation in life, appreciating and conserving what man has attained. The second places stress upon delight in vigorous action for the overcoming of obstacles. It involves a confident initiation of change, either in resolving personal and social problems or in overcoming obstacles in the natural world. The third dimension stresses the value of a self-sufficient inner life with a rich and heightened self-awareness. Control over persons and things is rejected in favor of a deep and sympathetic insight into self and others. The fourth underlying dimension values a receptivity to persons and to nature. Inspiration is seen as coming from a source outside the self, and the person lives and develops in devoted responsiveness to this source. The fifth and final dimension stresses sensuous enjoyment, self-enjoyment, the simple pleasures of life, and abandonment to the moment, a relaxed openness to life are valued. Well, that's a significant study, one of the first to measure objectively the answers given in different cultures to the question, what is the purpose of my life? It's also helped to define some of the basic dimensions in terms of which the choice is made. As Morris says, speaking of these dimensions, it's as if persons in various cultures have in common 5 major tones in the musical scales on which they compose different melodies. But then Carl Rogers writes, I find myself, however, vaguely dissatisfied with this study. None of the ways to live which Morris puts before the students as possible choices, and none of the factor dimensions, seem to contain satisfactorily the goal of life which emerges in my experience with my clients. As I watch person after person struggle in his therapy hours to find a way of life for himself, there seems to be a general pattern emerging, which is not quite captured by any of Morris's descriptions. The best way I can state this aim of life, as I see it coming to light in my relationship with my clients, is to use the words of Søren Kierkegaard, to be that self which one truly is. He then writes, I'm quite aware that this may sound so simple as to be absurd. To be what one is seems like a statement of obvious fact rather than a goal. What does it mean? What does it imply? He goes on to point out that he observed a tendency on the part of the person in therapy to move away from, hesitantly and fearfully, from a self that he is not. As one professional man put it, I finally felt that I simply had to begin doing what I wanted to do, not what I thought I should do. This is a complete reversal of my whole life. I've always felt I had to do things because they were expected of me, or more important, to make people like me. The hell with it. I think from now on I'm going to just be me, rich or poor, good or bad, rational or irrational, logical or illogical, famous or infamous. So thanks for your part in helping me to rediscover Shakespeare's "To thine own self be true." A little later, Dr. Rogers quotes Kierkegaard's description of the individual who really exists. An existing individual is constantly in process of becoming, and translates all his thinking into terms of process. It is with him as it is with a writer and his style, for he only has a style who never has anything finished, but moves the waters of the language every time.